Ladies, gentlemen, and Sentinels of all ages, Chrono Odyssey is an upcoming MMO from Chrono Studios that looks extremely ambitious and intriguing in a number of different ways. We've talked about this game on our channel before because I am pretty hyped for it myself, if for no other reason. And a couple of days back, we had the Summer Games Fest, at which there was a brand new trailer for Chrono Odyssey, along with an actual set of dates for the upcoming closed beta test that was announced last month. So, with that closed beta test coming up, today I wanted to just sort of go over and give you all a refresher, whether you've been following the game or not, on everything of real meaning that we know about Chrono Odyssey so far. First things first, because I did mention it, there will be a closed beta test for the game. This current beta is PC only and only through Steam specifically, where you have to request access through their Steam page. The beta itself will be taking place from June 20th to June 22nd, so around a week and a half from now. This beta will be a limited section of the game. Specifically, we've been told it will focus on early main story quests, and we will have access to 3 playable classes out of the 6 classes that we know will exist on release. These will be the Swordsman, who is all about swords and a little bit about shields, the Berserker, who is mostly about axes and implements of cleaving in general, and then the Ranger, which is your bow, crossbow, and uniquely rapier combat option in this game as well. As far as the servers available for the beta, no confirmation, but I've seen it claimed that there will be a North American server, a European server, and an Asia server, but the game will also not be region locked, so if you can get into the beta and you are not from one of those areas, you still can just play the game on whichever of the 3 servers is closest to you. So you may have a bit of lag, which may be awkward with precise timing action combat, but you can at least definitely still play the game. And it's worth mentioning that it's always possible there will be more servers than that on actual game release as well. This is not only a closed beta test, it is the first beta test of potentially multiple. Chrono Odyssey, as a whole then, is a game with 2 main themes, and they are both in the name itself. Chrono, meaning time, as the whole game hinges around time manipulation mechanics. It's its big hook, it's what makes the game properly unique, and from the gameplay that we've seen so far, this does look quite interesting. Being able to do things like freeze all of the enemies around you in a sort of stasis and stop time, or use it to rewind time, which straight up just moves you positionally back to where you were before, and we can speculate maybe it'll reset stuff like cooldowns that you use during it as well, as that would just be a really fun thing to be able to maximize and optimize within an MMO. Odyssey, then the second word in the name, meaning a long and adventurous journey, as the other thing about this game is that their plan is to have it be a sort of sandbox MMO, by which I mean the devs have stated multiple times that they want players to have a lot of freedom of choice in this game. There will be quests, there will be a story of course, but they want exploration to be the biggest part of the experience, and they've said through the systems they've made, if you're someone who just purely enjoys things like crafting and life skills in these types of video games, you can just play the game purely through that. You can hit max level while doing only that, you can get yourself powerful gear while doing only that, and be just as strong as pretty much anyone else. Or, if you are the opposite and you really just enjoy combat, you can also just fully focus on that too. But even beyond that, what they've put in here is just quite a few varied activities that should make the game very interesting from what we've heard and seen so far. This here is an infographic that the developer team put out after a private test that took place a few months ago for the game that they called the Focus Group Test. This graphic shows a few things, but to really understand it, you want a bit more context of where to look and why it matters. For the most part, I want to guide you to the bottom left part of the graphic, which shows you the most popular activities. Bounty hunting was the most popular thing by far in this test, which in theory involves just actually searching for and hunting down an actual target, rather than your typical side quest, go to this marker, defeat the enemy that's there, and that's it. Then there's also field bosses, which is pretty self-explanatory. They are bosses that will exist in the field, in the open world. There are labyrinths, which are seemingly a more solo activity with puzzles and parkour, rather than just straight up like a fully combat-focused activity. There's trial dungeons, which have since, I think, been renamed as expedition dungeons, and this is your more typical MMO dungeon type experience. Enemies, story, bosses, rewards, and then there was also time portals. The devs have stated in a recent interview that the time portals are an activity that sends you back in time to a version of the same area you were in, but in the past. This will have unique lore, unique enemies, and also special items to collect within it. So essentially, there is quite a lot of options of what to do in the game, even right now in its closed beta state that it will be entering. Multiple options of how you choose to spend your time, and importantly, how you personally want to progress and get stronger, which is definitely quite an interesting concept. Personally, I'm extra interested in the parkour and puzzly type activities and mechanics, as those usually aren't very common in MMOs outside of obscure raid mechanics. On which note, while this isn't expected for the beta test, we do of course have confirmation that the full game on release will have raids, which will be larger party, actual proper activities with big nasty bosses. We also know about something called region bosses that should be in the closed beta too, which are like field bosses but just much bigger and expect you to fight them in large groups in the open world, with the expectation that being that they will require multiple full parties to take down properly. There will also be chrono gates as an activity, which are supposedly a solo experience that is just like a powerful boss, maybe some traps, stuff like that, but from what we've been shown, these seem like the big solo skill tests of the game. You're in like an arena when you fight them, and generally speaking, the devs have stated that all content that focuses on solo play is about testing the player's skill and strategic ability, whereas all party content is more geared towards testing your teamwork and coordination. There will also be PvP available for fighting against other players, but the main focus of this game is the PvE side of it instead. So, as you can see, there are tons of activities you can choose to engage with, and this should offer quite a bit of freedom to let you do whatever it is you think you will enjoy the most. The devs have even gone over a quick roadmap for the future, in which they stated that their immediate goals are working on having higher content density within their open world, more immersion, and just more multiplayer activities in general. Then they also emphasize that they want the game to not be one that is about moving from like one objective to another in a straight line. They want a giant creative sandbox to let players just mess around with and explore inside of. We've also had an extremely brief look at a couple of pieces of equipment, which doesn't tell us too much other than giving us a slight idea how the stats and mechanics of gear will play out. There's a standard sort of fantasy attribute system, strength, dexterity, stuff like that as main stats, and then secondary affixes on gear as well that do more specific things like a damage boost or damage reduction for specifically PvP only, or you could get crit damage reduction or a boss damage increase. One of these also has a jewel socket in it with a jewel inside of it, and that jewel raises the level of a specific skill by 2 levels. This is also quite interesting to know. There are only a few examples here, so this system will likely be much more fleshed out than what we've seen, but this helps us get a bigger picture of what's going on with the game. On which note, there will of course be upgrading mechanics for the equipment, and for those who are worried that that means the game might go full pay-to-win hell in the endgame, the developers have been very explicit and loud that the game will not be pay to win in any way, even releasing a short on their official YouTube channel of just a character dancing while they put that on the screen. And of course, they've also said it will be buy to play, not free to play, so they don't intend to have to make the majority of their money from microtransactions like that. Of course, until we see the finished product and all the mechanics and such, it's hard to know if it's 100% accurate, if there really will be no pay to win in the slightest, but at the very least, we know that is their intention. It's what they mean to be the case, and that definitely counts for something, at least enough that I'm willing to not worry about it personally until I'm given something that actually feels worrying. All that said, the next thing that I properly want to dive into are the class options. We've had it confirmed that these will not be gender locked and that there also will be an in-depth character creator system. We haven't seen the creator itself, so we don't know exactly how much, but we have seen a number of different characters that were made within it, and it does look reasonably deep. You can have quite the varied character design. Importantly, this means that you can play any class while looking however you actually want to, which is always nice to have. There are 6 classes that we know about for release, and each class will have access to 3 weapon types total. You will be able to swap between 2 weapons actively in combat, but you have 3 weapon types as actual options to choose between. Each weapon has their own skills tied to them with their own cooldowns on them as well, and the intended optimal combat flow that the developers have said involves swapping weapons a lot, managing the fact that the weapons have their own cooldowns on their skills, and just sort of blasting out cooldowns for one weapon, then swapping to a different weapon and blasting out your cooldowns on that one, swapping back, so on and so forth. There is also no typical like Holy Trinity combat system in this game. No class is exclusively a healer or exclusively a tank, tank or something like that, but every class should have some options for extra tankiness or some options for healing through one of their 3 weapon types, with the idea being that these different weapon types offer a ton of variety within each class. For the Swordsman class, which will be in the beta, they have sword and shield as their main advertised weapon combo, with blocking and stuff like that. They have a big old greatsword as one of their weapons too, and then their third option is dual swords with some proper big blades on them. The Berserker, who will be in the beta, their 3 weapons are the chain blades, which is always an exciting pair of words to stick together as far as I'm concerned, then also dual axes, and then also a big proper great axe as well. The Ranger, which is the final of the 3 beta classes, has access to a bow, as well as a crossbow for their ranged options, and then also a rapier as a melee option too, so you can work around in melee as necessary with that character too. Then for the other 3 classes, they won't be in the beta, but in case you want to know regardless ahead of the actual release of the game, there will be the Sorcerer, whose 3 weapon types are a staff, a book, or a magical orb. And this is probably the least straightforward and obvious among the actual differences between their weapons, but of course these will be tied to different types of spells and types of magic. Then there is also the Assassin, who has a big katana curved sword weapon, a pair of daggers or even wrist blades I've seen people call them, which is quite interesting, and then a full-on rifle, like an actual gun. Yeah, an actual gun. Then the final class is going to be the Paladin, whose weapon options are a spear with a shield, a big 2-handed spear, or a mace with a shield, which again I think is likely going to rely heavily on skills to differentiate the playstyles of the weapons for this class. Other than that, the only real thing left to cover is the story itself, and it's going to be quite dark and violent, so be prepared for more than a bit of blood, death, and despair along your adventure. The world itself, Satera, is being consumed by the Void, which is the name of the faction of the bad guys that you'll be fighting against in the game. Our job as one of the Sentinels is to fight back against this, going even so far as to travel through time itself to do so. So all in all, the game looks to be an absolutely grand adventure full of varied activities, varied combat, and just sort of letting you do whatever you think would be fun at any given time. We have only seen a small bit of what the game is as a whole, but there is the upcoming closed beta test happening quite soon that should let us get a ton more information about what the game is actually going to be like. So I'm looking forward to that a lot myself, and I absolutely recommend signing up for it if you are interested in the game. That just about does it for today, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this, and good luck getting into the beta itself. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.